If you sit most of the day and have poor posture off the bike, it will also cause problems when you're riding. Studies consistently show that cyclists have worse posture than non-cyclists. Common issues include pelvic tilt, where the front of the pelvis tilts downwards, lumbar kyphosis, the rounding of the lower back, and thoracic flexion, bending over of the upper back. And if you don't do anything off the bike, your posture will worsen. But we could fix this with just 3 minutes a day and 3 simple exercises. So if you want to reverse the effects of sitting and cycling and feel better both on and off the bike, let's dive into some fascinating studies. One study measured participants' spinal curves while standing and on the bike, comparing elite cyclists with non-elite cyclists. They found that cyclists had significantly higher thoracic spinal angles than the control group when standing. Here's what normal posture looks like. Each spine section has a defined neutral range of degrees. Focusing on the thoracic spine or mid-spine, which consists of 12 vertebrae from the base of your neck to the bottom of your ribs, it's designed to extend, to flex, to rotate, but often becomes stiff from sedentary lifestyles. Limited thoracic extension is problematic for cyclists. The thoracic spine helps maintain a flat back while riding. If it's too stiff, the lower spine will compensate, leading to lumbar flexion, which causes repetitive stress and pain over time. Range for a thoracic curve is 20 to 45 degrees. A straight back is less than 20 degrees, and a hunched posture occurs when curvature extends 45 degrees. Here, cyclists show a thoracic curve of 49.17 degrees compared to non-cyclists at 42.68 degrees. And this is just one study. Many others report similar findings, each with over 60 participants in each group. But you can see all of these studies reported similar findings. We even have studies that flat out recommend working on your posture to help your performance on the bike. These studies don't directly link poor posture to cycling alone. However, cyclists do have poor posture. And coupled with everyday life, like bad sitting posture, it's an injury waiting to happen, especially for older cyclists like myself. I learned this the hard way. If you don't work on your posture off the bike, it will catch up with you. The good news is there's a study offering insights into reversing the effects of sitting. They made participants sit for 4.5 hours a day to see how it affected their muscle stiffness. Split into 3 groups, one group just sat there, the other group received low-level neuromuscular electrical stimulation into their back muscles at regular intervals, and then the last group received a high amplitude current that caused their back muscles to actually contract, similar to when you're exercising. And the interesting thing about sitting on a chair is that you could also compare it to sitting on a bike, meaning when you sit for a long time, your joints are stuck in one position. You fatigue or you get lazy, and all of a sudden, you're in a bad position and your body essentially turns off the muscles that you're not using. And note, this still happens even if you have the best bike fit in the world. Surprisingly, the high amplitude group, whose muscles contracted from the current, saw their back stiffness almost completely reverse. What does this mean for you? Well, you don't need to run electrical currents through your back while you're at your desk or you're on a bike. If you want a better solution, one that will relieve muscle tension in your back, shoulders, and hips, improve your posture, and increase your range of motion for more effective cycling, you simply need to start moving the joints and contracting the muscles that you don't use when sitting all day or on the bike. And I know how hard it can be to stick to a mobility routine consistently. So rather than giving you an extensive list of movements, I have a simple technique to make sure that you remember to do the exercises, and then 3 exercises that focus on the most problematic areas. First, the technique to make sure that you're consistent, because it really is all about consistency. We're going to use the idea of habit stacking from S.J. Scott, and the idea behind habit stacking is simple. To create a new habit, all you have to do is stack it or associate it with a current habit. In other words, if you want a new habit to stick, you have to perform it right before or right after something that already comes naturally to you. Now, I've got a pretty bad habit of riding my bike a few times a week, and if you do too, why don't we do these exercises before every ride? And I know, this does sound obvious, but I'm trying to make it as simple and straightforward as possible. Now we get to the first of our 3-minute mobility routine exercises. And the first exercise is great for improving rounded, locked up shoulders. Not only will you loosen your delts and your chest, but it will also strengthen the weakened muscles in your upper back and shoulders for long-term posture improvements. It's called the wall clock. And to perform it, get off your bike and you find a wall. Any wall will do. And then you stand there next to the wall, and with your thumb down and fingers on the wall, it is simply a matter of going backwards all the way around. And then once you reach that side, come back around again. You can actually make this easier or harder depending on how flexible you actually are in these joints. And so it becomes harder the closer you are and easier the further away you are. But I will give you a bit of a cue on how much of a stretch you want to feel. You don't want to go too hard, so you really only want to make it a 4 out of 10. So we go all the way around, engage the core so your upper body isn't moving that much, and then go all the way back. Now, we're going to focus on the thoracic spine, and remember that this is the most out of in all of the studies. So for the start of this one, we need to be on the side of the bike, and we're going to use the top tube as the thing that we use to balance ourselves and the bike. Traditionally, this stretch is done with the elbows, but I actually find that this starting position, which is one palm over the other, is a really good one. So you want your knees kind of shoulder width apart, and if you are having troubles getting down or your shoulders are hurting when you're doing that, you can actually do the exercise like this. So thumbs up, shoulder width apart. And the idea is that you're not actually dropping the head so much, it's you're pushing your chest through. And then once you push your chest through further enough, you will feel that stretch in the back of your spine, so in the thoracic spine, if my bike behaves here. So we push that spine back, we drop the chest down, and we breathe through it. That's a really good stretch. So just do that for, say, 10 seconds, and then come up and have a rest, and then go back down. And so if you wanted to do that for 6 times, that would give you about a minute. And that would be enough. Again, 4 out of 10. Is what you're aiming for. You don't really need anything more than that, because it is the consistency ride after ride, day after day that we're looking for. Finally, the perfect 3-minute mobility routine wouldn't be complete without an exercise to target your hips. While you're sitting all day or you're on the bike, your hips are locked into one position, but they're designed to move in all sorts of different directions. So we need an exercise that moves them into as many different positions as possible, or at least giving you the flexibility for you to move around, and then for you to also scale it from level 1, 2, and 3, depending on how flexible you are. So you stand next to your bike, holding the handlebar and the saddle, and then you lift the leg off the floor and turn the knee out, like this, and then it's simply a matter of sitting down. So make sure this is a 90-degree angle, or as close to as possible. You want it square in front of you, and you will start to feel this. If you drop your hips down, you'll start to feel it. To increase the load a little bit, you want to bend at the hips, but keeping the back straight. Now again, you really only want a 4 or 5 out of 10 in this. You don't want it to be too difficult. You're not trying to win stretching in the first go. It really is about that consistency, where if you're breathing correctly, you'll be able to move slowly down over about 30 seconds per leg. And you can scale this as well. So you can either put your foot on the top tube, you can go even higher, put your feet up here, which I don't have. And I've got to say, this is my main weakness. This is where I had all of the problems with my back and leg. So it's something that I'm trying to put a lot of time into as well. If you want a more detailed guide and a visual aid for this mobility routine, consider downloading the free PDF guide that I've put together. The link is in the description below. And these exercises are great, but when you're on the bike, you really need to manage other important areas to maximize performance. Things like optimizing your power in real time. And there's a simple method that I use. It's an extremely underrated method for preventing wasted time while on the bike. And if you give this video here a watch, you'll be able to find out what it is and how to use it.